Before we start this video, I just wanted to say, if enough people see this, this may ruin the Crucible. What is going on, guys? I'm Ethan, welcome back to another video, and today in this one, I have a 100 build for you guys that I actually use personally, and I think it's really good and really broken, especially in trials, and all you need is one mod, but I will be showing you guys how to take advantage of this build, as well as use it to its full potential. Let's go through what makes this build so good. The main part would be Dynamo, which is a mod that drops from Banshee, or you can buy it from him from his daily rotation in the shop. Now currently, I'm not too sure if this is true or not, but you may be able to get these mods from claiming rewards at Banshee when you turn in enough weapon materials, or from Shacks as well when you level up, but don't take my word for it. Dynamo is what holds this build together, because it allows you to gain super energy from dodging your enemies. Now second would be the stasis aspect, Winter's Shroud. This aspect causes you to slow enemies when you dodge near them, and also makes it a living nightmare to try and aim at your enemies. Now lastly would be the exotic Gemini Jesters. Currently, there are no other exotics that I've thought of that could be really good for this build, but if you do find one, please leave it in the comments down below so other people can see it. The reason this exotic is so good in my opinion is because it not only allows you to take away enemy radars, but it also allows you to disorient them. This would mean that your enemies would not be able to see their radars for about 1 to 2 seconds, and the great thing about this is you can see where they are through walls. Now Gemini's does hit damage hit markers, it hits up for about 1 to 2 damage on average, and you can see where your enemies are. So let's say for instance I wanted to see if my enemy was 3-peeking. I can go up to really close to the wall, dodge, see where they are on the map, and take out the radars at the same time. Now for a brief little summary, you have a mod for your helmet that will give you super energy when you dodge near enemies, an aspect that will slow enemies, and an exotic that will take away enemy radars and disorient them. It's a 3-in-1 combo, and if you have 100 mobility, you will be doing this every 11 seconds. The point is, if you're doing this every 11 seconds, you're going to have your super in no time. Of course, you can still utilize this build without Stasis or Geminis, but I find it works best with them. I did make a little list here explaining what our goals for this build would be. Number 1, of course, would be gain your super as much as possible. Number 2 would be to take away your enemy radars and disorient them. Number 3 is play for the neutral game. I'll get into that briefly. And number 4 would be counter 3-peeking, and I will get into that as well. Something here that I did forget to note as well is that this mod, Dynamo, and Gemini's work through walls. So if you're dodging next to a wall and someone is behind it, you will still hit them with Gemini's, so the radar will be taken out, and Dynamo will still proc as well. The first thing I wanted to mention here was the neutral game. If you're not aware with what the neutral game means, it's basically what abilities you have without your super. For instance, our Stasis Hunter abilities are probably one of the best neutral games in the game. For starters, we have shurikens that are basically ninja stars that slow enemies, do damage, and have the possibility of freezing if used right. Secondly would be the grenade. Personally, I found that glacial nades work best for me, but if you would like to use any others such as cold snaps, those work as well. Now the last thing would be aspects and fragments. You can use a total of 2 aspects with stasis, and one of those slots will already be taken but by Winter's Shroud. The next one can vary based off of the grenade you decide to use. The aspect I use is Shatter Dive because it allows me to create great mobility and helps me move from places faster. If you don't use Shatter Dive, you can either leave that slot blank or use the last remaining aspect. If you're wondering how to get these aspects, you must finish the Beyond Light campaign first, then you will get a quest, and once you complete the quest, you should get the first aspect. From there on out, you can continue doing quests and unlocking fragments and other aspects. Sorry I'm being super vague on this topic, as this isn't the main focus on the video, but if you would like to learn more about the aspects and fragments, I suggest you watch a video about it. For fragments, you should be using the ones that slow your enemies for a longer amount of time when you use your abilities, and the other fragment can vary as well. I personally use the one that allows you to create bigger bursts when breaking crystals, but that is because I use Shatter Dive, so it really depends on what you want to use. Let's talk about 3-peeking. Now, we all know what 3-peeking is. It's basically when you emote around the corner so you can see what your enemies are doing or holding a sword out, and we all know it's really annoying in trials, but sometimes it's what must be done to win. Now, say for instance the enemy team is 3-peeking in trials. You would then go up to the wall with your Geminis and your Dynamo, just using that build, and once they're close to the wall, you would just keep dodging near them. This will keep giving you super energy and take away the enemy's radars at the same time, allowing for one of your other teammates to flank around if possible, and maybe get a pick on one of the other guys. Now, I want to take some time to review what we talked about before and even talk about some pros and cons. Now, some things to note would be that in order for this build to work, you need to be near someone, and if you're not going to get any super energy or anything like that. And another thing to note would be you do get this mod from Banshee as a random drop, or you can buy it from the random store every day. I have known a little questions about when I play trials and talk about this build is, does this work with Titans and Warlocks? Now, it does work with Titans and Warlocks, but it is much harder to pull off than with Hunters because you have to place a rift or a barricade right next to the enemy, right? And I'm not too sure if this works over walls as well. I'm assuming it does work across walls and through walls and whatnot, but that would have to be tested. Now let's talk about a pro here, and probably one of the biggest pros of this build would be that you're always going to get your super first. Now I find in trials matches, for me personally, that when round 2 is over, I have at least half of my super. Of course that depends on the kills, it depends on your intellect, and even though this is a stasis super, you still have the possibility of getting the super before something like a Chaos or a Dawnblade or any light super, if that. Now, a big con for this build is farther range maps. Now, if the map is really big, you're going to have a harder time finding close proximity to dodge near enemies, and it might just not work as well for you. You could still pull this off if you try to stay as close as possible without getting hit, but again, it is a little harder to pull off on farther range maps. Now, let's talk about the possibilities of how you want to play with this build. Say you start off in a trials game and you push up to the middle, but you find out the enemy is playing super far back and sword peeking. What you would want to do in this situation is go as close to the enemy as possible without being shot, possibly near a wall or where the radar does ping the enemy. Now, you want to keep dodging continuously, and you should be getting your super energy and annoying the enemies when you keep taking out their radar. Another great thing about this build is not many people know about it, so the enemy most of the time will not be thinking twice when you farm super energy off of them. This is a great chance for a teammate with a sniper possibly to take a flank approach and take one of the enemies out. This example strategy also works great because the enemies may not expect someone to push from a different angle, and they wouldn't know if someone was because the radar was taken out. Once you play like this for a while, you'll be getting your supers before anyone else and taking them to your advantage. I found that I can get an average of 2 to 4 supers per trials game now, and if the enemy does decide to play slow, most of the time it will be in our favor. Now, say for example that you're playing a more aggressive team. Your team pushes in the middle and the other team does as well. You will dodge into the enemies whether you need to or not, and 1. You will slow the enemies, 2. Take out their radar and disorient them, and 3. Get insane amounts of super energy off of them. By then, your team should be able to sweep the enemies with minimal problems. Now, this build does play very differently for 6v6 due to 6v6 being a faster paced game mode, but this may vary, and this may still work as well depending on your playstyle. Personally, I still like this build in 6v6, and it does work effectively, but those were just a few strategies you can use with this build. Now, I think I've covered pretty much everything I wanted to with this build. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope this build helps you out, and you can use this to your advantage in the Crucible. If you did enjoy, please leave a like and consider subscribing as this helps this channel out a lot. And check out my other socials linked down below if you would like to. I hope you guys enjoyed again, and I hope you guys have a great day. Peace out.